Hello, everybody. Welcome to the News Network. Today we are doing a special show a year later from the George Floyd riots, and we get to talk to business owners that were affected by the looting and burning that occurred. But this business owner has a very special and interesting story. He was running a restaurant that was burned down during these riots, but he didn't have the reaction that you would expect. Mr. Islam here, tell me about the reaction that you had to your restaurant being burned down.
Hello, I am Mr. Islam. I was very glad when my restaurant got burned down. There's nothing I like more than social justice. So when my restaurant got burnt down, I was incredibly happy about it. Black Lives Matter murals everywhere.
There's somebody stealing from you right now.
He ate my beans. He probably needed it more than I did. So it's totally fine. I didn't need that money or my personal belongings. It's fine.
I could call the police, sir.
No,
don't.
Police are racist. Okay, we don't need the police.
Are you sure? I mean, you just got a significant amount of items stolen from you.
All in the name of justice.
And seat. A quick opening for you guys today. I know you guys love the improv skits. You don't even have to tell us. You don't even have to go down below and leave a comment saying that you love our openings, because we know that you love them. Now, the story that this opening was inspired by is one out of Fox News. I'm going to read the headline for you guys. Minneapolis business owner who cheered rioters burning down restaurant has van stolen and new business robbed. I mean, it's almost not funny. But it's a little funny. I'll go into the background with this man. His name is Riots Islam. I think that's how you pronounce it. He was a business owner in Minneapolis, and he'd set up shop across town a year ago as the George Floyd riots were going out after his death. Now, his business, of course, was burned down, but what he decided to do in response to that was put out a Facebook post that said, "Let my business burn. Justice needs to be served." Is that the reaction that you guys would have to your business being burned down by BLM rioters?
Well, it doesn't make any sense. If this guy considers himself a anti-racist, anti-establishment leftist, then why would he want his business to burn? His business didn't do anything wrong. So obviously this man is delusional. I mean,
the logic, it is very much devoid of logic, but I guess a lot of leftists hold the sentiment that people are angry and they're taking to the streets, and if my business is taken out as a piece of that, then I'm okay with it because people need to display their anger.
Like, I get it, you're saying conservative businesses, like maybe you're like, okay, all white businesses or all conservative businesses need to be burned down, but to wish it upon your own business.
It's a testament to the cognitive dissonance of the left. Don't you think, Taylor?
I do think. It's here. Speaking of this mug I just stole, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
No, I wouldn't like it, but apparently he does like it. It feels good to be virtuous, so good that it feels better, or it feels so good that losing your business isn't even that bad, having it burned down. Like the level of religious fervor that it takes to, receive so much gratification from being woke is pretty astonishing.
It's nearly commendable. And so what has happened after this is that he had gotten a food truck all set up and was running his business differently now. That truck was stolen. It had tons and tons of supplies and catering utilities in the truck that was taken, as well as all of his financial papers and listings taken. It also had keys to his business. They took the keys, went into his business, and stole more money from him.
This is just like that activist councilman in Atlanta who wanted to defund the police, and then he got carjacked by 10-year-olds. It's like, you are advocating for the policies that create chaos and disorder in your city, and then it comes to bite you, and it's pretty much poetic justice, not social justice, but poetic justice.
You're doubling down. You're doubling down on the things that you said, which you have to at least commend him for that he sees what happened to his business and then sees what happens to his business, his new food truck. Again, he continues to double down, and that's at least commendable that he's standing up for the things that he believes in, even if it is brain dead and makes no sense.
Yeah, the statement that he put out after his truck being stolen is that he will not press charges if the van is returned. He said, if you need food, I will give you food for all your life. You will have it. You need a job to rent a house, I'll give you a job. Come work with us and solve the problem. This is what we have to do. That's commendable.
You have a city full of lawlessness, or you keep giving people free stuff, then Of course, this is the way they're going to act.
Yeah, I just
It's incredibly obvious.
it's wild, and for him to have this sort of temperament around it after twice having your business ruined.
Yeah, how do you think, like, at what point does it get bad enough for you to wake up? Because this attitude, and you see it reflected in like major cities across America, they all have district attorneys who are refusing to prosecute crime and letting people go. And we're just lowering the bar for like what is expected social, like acceptable behavior in society. And we're making it less and less punishable to commit crimes. And what do you think is going to happen? That's not being nice. That's not being compassionate. What about the unintended victims of the rampant violence and crime in your cities? What about the store owners who aren't as woke as you and who are losing their businesses because of crime? Someone at PragerU, Chris, his family has a coffee shop in San Francisco, and they're not only suffering from lockdowns and stuff, but also rampant crime because it's and people are big companies like Target closed early on the 4th of July weekend all over San Francisco because in anticipation of anarchy. It's like, this is not how you have a successful society. It's degenerate.
It's state-sanctioned anarchy.
Yeah.
The government allows it to happen. The government encourages people to do it. They're so worried about COVID, but oh no, it's fine if everyone goes out and riots and protests without your mask on. But we better lock down if even one person over the age of 80 dies, So the government allows it to happen. They don't actually care about normal working class people. And with this, I mean, this guy, even the people who it affects don't seem to even care. Where are people who have any sort of semblance of reality to say enough is enough?
Right, just to say this is not right, and it's happened to me now twice, and somebody needs to take a stand and fix this because, again, we're not fixing it, we're accommodating it. It's what's happening in San Francisco, it's what's happening across California. We're now allowing people to go into businesses and shoplift whatever they want, so long as it's less than $950. So now you have businesses, even big chain corporations, that are shutting down their different franchises. You have normal mom and pop shops that are shutting down or having to move their businesses. And with that, when the property is stolen, guess what? Prices go up because they have to be able to recoup the losses of you going in and shoplifting from their business. Now, we got a super chat by somebody by the name of Plain Genius saying, look up the paradox of tolerance. The left loves tolerance, but they are ruining America just to feel good and not producing anything for the stimmy. I don't know what. Remember, love everyone, with those little emojis at the end. It's exactly what's happening. They're using virtue and gaining virtue points as if that's going to make up for the degradation of our society and all the crime that's happening. People who are being hurt, stolen from, cheated, robbed, killed. And it doesn't matter because we did the right thing and we are saving people with this virtue.
It usually doesn't affect the elites. The elites can say whatever they want and tell you that this is the way that America should be, this is the way society goes, but don't actually care about the lower classes. They just pretend to care. If they cared about the lower classes, they would care about exploiting people in China for their sweatshops, for their cell phones and everything else. They would care about human rights violations in South America and other places around the world, but they don't care about these things. You can have someone at an elite corporation say they care about climate change or that they care about Black Lives Matter. It's very cool. Like, this is the wokeness that is cool in a place like Brooklyn or San Francisco, but wokeness is not cool around the world. It's only to these people who actually are not affected by these things, the elite classes.
And they always feel the need. Not only do they always feel the need to weigh in on these things, but they're pressured to weigh in. It's like if you get a platform now for any reason, whether that's dancing, lip singing, acting, it doesn't matter what you're famous for. You now have
Lip syncing?
Yeah. Like the girls on TikTok.
You shouldn't be famous for that.
Well, there are plenty of people who are famous for it.
I'm just saying you shouldn't be.
And with that comes a political platform where you get to espouse your political views, even doesn't matter how misinformed they are, to millions of people. Even though, again, you will not be affected by it. Look at all the celebrities coming out after the George Floyd incident and saying, we need to defund the police. We need to reform the police system. We need to abolish the police system, some celebrities said. Those are the same celebrities that are living in their ivory towers surrounded by their own paid security forces and living in gated communities where they will never feel an ounce of the political legislation that they speak about and that they endorse.
Listen, they have their own private jets. They have their own private restaurants that you can't get into, their own private hotels, their own private cities they live in, all sorts of places that you don't go, and then they claim about injustice. They know nothing about the struggles of the working class person. Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, he came from, his dad was a dentist, and and very well off. So many of these people who are elitists were very well off, in opposed to like Andrew Carnegie, who was an elitist, who worked in a gin mill at the age of 13 years old, right? So you now have elites in this country who are incredibly out of touch with reality and out of touch with normal working hard class Americans. So you've created this divide between the rich and the poor, and even rich and middle class, that they're being fooled. You're being fooled by these rich elites.
But everybody's an intellectual. As Tom Sowell would say, it used to be that meteorologists were the only people who got paid to lie, and now intellectuals get to do the same. And what they do is they don't have any accountability, because if you're an intellectual and you make a statement or you endorse a piece of legislation or policy and it fails, nobody cares. Because all you did was give a verbal endorsement of it. All you did was influence millions of people to do the same. And when that policy or that legislation or that idea does destabilize a society, who cares? Because you're not affected by it.
Yeah, and like the irony of the fact that they support policies that create anarchy, or they support policies like lockdowns and persuade everyone else to go out there and advocate for these, and then it ends up harming small businesses and shutting them down. And then what does that do? It strengthens the big chains and the other ones that they're supposedly critical of big business, but it ends up strengthening all the big businesses that can actually survive that. Same thing with minimum wage. They want to raise the minimum wage, and then what happens? The small businesses can't afford the big ones can absorb that wage hike, or that artificial wage hike, but the small ones can't compete. And then you end up shutting down some smaller businesses, and then you have more bigger businesses, and then you're just perpetuating the problems that you're claiming to be against.
What amazes me is how much big businesses are even being impacted like this. Look at how many of the different Walgreens and CVS chains, now Victoria's Secret as well, have had to shut down because of the shoplifting and the accommodation of this sort of reckless crime. But we're not doing anything to fix that. We're just going to allow it to keep happening. Honestly, we're probably going to legalize more criminal actions. Instead, when we talk about police and we talk about crime, we are talking about how we can reform our police forces and our police departments. Here's an article out of Vice News, and the title is, "Do Black Women Have to Save the Police Too?" It's an interesting way that they form that grammatically. Do Black women have to save the police too? I'm unaware of what else Black women are saving in America. Do you guys know? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't spend my days saving anything that I know of other than what we say on this podcast.
Money on college tuition for affirmative action.
That's very true. But now what Vice is reporting is that Black women are extremely, if not more, capable of running police departments than any other demographic in the nation, because they are caring and nurturing and less likely to use their weapons. Now, they reference 6 women who are now running as who are now working as police chiefs in different departments across the nation, and saying that we know all too well that policing is a male-dominated field, but we absolutely have our place in this field too, says one of the police chiefs. In fact, they're saying that we should incentivize Black women being police chiefs.
This is a Vice article?
This is a Vice article.
And this is just some op-ed by some person, or what?
It is, and it talks about how police departments are actively looking for more Black women to be a part of policing, because they feel the need that if you are going to police a community, you should look like the police. You should look like the community that you're policing.
How about if you're going to police a community, you should be effective at your job and creating a safe environment for people to live and work and conduct business in and go to school and feel safe to live outside their homes. Like when we went to Watts in South Central LA, the police were telling us that the gangs are controlling the area so much so that the people who live there do not feel safe to come outside their homes. They'd rather call in sick than ask a gang member who's parked in their driveway and blocking them, than to ask them to move. And soft policing is creating problems. And I don't care what color the leadership of the police is or what the police officers are. You need effective policing to establish a baseline of safety in a community before you can have any sort of improvement.
The gang members in Watts don't care what color you are. Now, gang members in Watts see a white police officer roll up and a Black police officer roll up, and they're still going to shoot each other. They're still going to sell drugs to each other. They're not committing crimes because of the color of the skin of the police officers. You have to be brain dead to think that that's actually the case. They don't care. They're going to continue to do horrible, bad things no matter what color the police officers are.
Right.
So if you are affirmative action hiring these people in and they're not as good at their job, you're just hiring them in because of the color of their skin, then you're going to be even worse off.
And this again brings up the argument of critical race theory. Ideology like this and this thinking when it comes to diversity hiring and diversity quotas is a remnant of CRT. I can't say that enough. And when you implement this sort of equity hiring where you are trying your best to get black females in leadership positions in the police, you are actively ignoring people who are capable of doing these jobs just for the virtue signaling of being able to hire a black woman. When we all know that black females are not the ones who are most likely to sign up to be a police chief or to even be a police officer. So what you're doing now is ignoring hundreds of thousands of applicants who are qualified to do policing, who are qualified to be police chiefs, who have tenure in the police force, and you are ignoring them and overlooking them just so you can find a black female to say, you know what, our police department is being run by a black female. Thanks, guys.
I would be interested to know the people in these police departments who are actually asking for more black women to be police chiefs. Because the policemen who I've talked to, I mean, these are just normal run-of-the-day guys running the beat. I mean, they don't want this. They don't care. They're like, whatever. If they're qualified, it doesn't matter. But they're not like actively pushing for it. So who are the people in charge of these police forces that are making these kinds of decisions? Why is it that the police are like overwhelmingly conservative, but then the people in charge are on the left? It's the same with the military. The military is largely conservative, largely Christian, and then you have these people in charge of the military, the elite people, who are on the left. That seems to be the case in like every single old American institution in this country, that they are being completely taken over by the left, even though the constituents or the people who make up that population are conservative.
Right. And this article goes on to talk about different people who were killed by the police. And just, again, we talk about journalistic integrity a lot on this show, and there seems to be none in this country anymore, aside from a few sources. But let's look at this part of the article where they talk about Ma'Khia Bryant being shot and killed by police. 4 months later, 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant died at the hands of police during a family altercation. That's how they explain the death of Ma'Khia Bryant.
That's what Ben Shapiro would call journalisming.
Right,
The way
right.
you frame it is just so dishonest.
It's dishonest because if anybody is familiar with Ma'Khia Bryant and her death at the hands of police, she had a knife in her hands and was going to stab another young woman either in the head or the throat. Who knows? Because a brave police officer, in a matter of 13 seconds, arrived at the scene, got out of his car, and took care of a suspect who was going to kill another young girl.
You know, these are the same people who say that Michael Brown had his hands up and said, "Don't hands up, don't shoot."
Right.
The same types of people who would perpetuate that lie.
And it's sad to see this sort of reporting because what it does is it scares young black people, especially young black males, into being afraid of police officers when there's no data to support that police officers present a viable threat to any black man unless he's committing a crime or doing something illegal or evading arrest or brandishing a weapon or threatening another police officer. And that should be the only necessary requirements for being scared of the police is you committing a crime, threatening a police officer, being armed, or evading arrest.
And just for the record, Amala did a full breakdown of the Ma'Khia Bryant situation on a pretty viral video. And I can post that link in the comments if you are so interested.
Yeah, check it out if you're unfamiliar with that case. So yeah, the only reform being made to the criminal justice system right now is apparently hiring more black women to the police force because we need to feel represented. When I get pulled over by a police officer, it better be a black female or I'm going to be really angry.
Same. I only want arrested. I only want to be arrested by black females.
Now, this leads us into our next story because things like this come out because people on the left are so worried about racism. And you guys have seen this stream multiple times, I'm assuming. You know that on the right, that is not the case. Conservatives are not extremely worried about racism. We don't see racism as a barrier to completing your civic duty and being an active citizen in this nation. But this is an article out of USA Today. So a new Hidden Common Ground survey by Public Agenda and USA Today shows stark partisan differences over whether racism is a barrier to participation in the political process and whether addressing racism requires systemic change. Now, of course, the majority of Dems and left-leaning people said that racism is a barrier to this sort of civic duty, this sort of work, and that we do have a systemic problem in this nation. That is to the tune of 88% of people who were surveyed. So 88% of left-leaning individuals or left identifying individuals said that systemic racism is a major problem in this country. This is also what independents said. Independents and non-affiliated people, 67% of independents and non-affiliated people said that they also believe that racism is a major issue. And on the right, with Republicans, 46% of conservatives said that they also believe in the systemic racism is an issue in this country, which I was shocked by.
Yeah, that's too many Republicans.
Yeah, I think
That's
so
way
too.
too many.
That's more than I would expect. What about you, Taylor?
I think across the board, it's not based in reality. And I was just Googled who said this quote. It's Joseph Goebbels, but he said, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. And he would know better than anyone because he was a Nazi propaganda leader. But this whole lie of systemic racism has been repeated so much and so often at every level of society, then people just buy into it because, I don't know what the appeal is. It feels good. You want to be on the right side of people who are victimized or whatever. So they push this narrative and people just run with it and buy into it. And there's this huge false sense that is just not based in fact or reality. And we repeat the statistics over and over again, but like people would sooner just believe a narrative than look at factual reality. And I mean, it's a sad state of our country today.
Would
Right.
you rather be called racist or anti-racist? It's like a very obvious question. You obviously
Oh, you
wanna-
mean like any person? I'm
Any
like, I don't want
person.
to be called an anti-racist. I don't want to associate.
No, I'm
with
saying like, but you also, even if you don't want to be called an anti-racist, you don't want to be called a racist
Right, of
either.
course.
Right.
Right. So people will say anything to say they are against systemic racism, they are against institutional racism, just so that people won't call them racist.
Mm-hmm.
They will admit anything because being called racist is like, it's the worst thing in this country to be called nowadays. If you're called a racist, then you're basically a conservative, and then you're basically ostracized from so many different things. So no one wants to be called a racist. So they're going to all say the systemic racism is true because it's either that or get called a racist.
And
There
it's-
is no in between.
What's interesting to me and what has come out in this article is that if you frame the question differently, people respond differently and the percentages change vastly according to how the question is asked. So here's a way that they ask the question. All Americans have an equal opportunity to participate regardless of race. So it's essentially asking the same question. Does race place a barrier in you participating in this country as a citizen and you doing your civic duty? But here's how they answered. Now, Republicans, when asked this question, people on the right, conservatives, said 80% yes, everybody has an equal opportunity in this country regardless of race. So we got a much higher differential on this answer here. Democrats and left-leaning people, 42% said yes, which does not stand by the previous question, the previous statistics given there. And with independents and non-affiliated people, 54% of people said yes.
I don't trust these surveys, first of all. They'll ask you like, are conservatives racist or does cilantro taste like soap? And then you have to like choose one thing, and they're like very awkwardly worded, these types of surveys. Like all the polls that were for like the elections,
Right.
like you never believe the polls. I never believe
Well, of course,
any of them.
no. Look at how wrong
Yeah, exactly.
it was
So
last election.
I don't know how much I trust this poll.
All I'm saying is these are
But-
very basic yes or no questions, and they surveyed the same number of people with each question. So that being said, the skew in the answers is really interesting.
Yeah, there's clearly a difference in how left-leaning
Yes.
people respond to this and how right and left-leaning people think that if you're a person of color, then you're held back. And if you're on the right, then you believe, hey, America doesn't hold you back. Show me the law, show me the policy, show me how you're being held back.
Show me anything. And I'm actually working on something right now that is going to go over all the arguments that the left makes for systemic racism in America and debunking every single one of them. And I stand by that. There is no systemic racism in America unless you are counting that systemic racism that the left perpetuates by saying that you're black and you're oppressed and you're white and you're an oppressor. That is the only systemic racism that is occurring right now. And we are reverting back.
Here's what I'll say about systemic racism in America. It does exist, and it is perpetuated by the elite leftists who push a false narrative of racism in the country that racialize our children,
Yes.
that pit people against one another on the basis of race, that believe in race essentialism. That is the systemic racism.
That
The
is.
people who occupy every institution in academia and Hollywood, the mainstream media, they're pushing constantly this narrative of racism, and it's just a systemic problem. So yeah, systemic racism exists. It's this critical race theory stuff you're pushing everywhere, and it's you racializing every interaction. It's this affirmative action stuff you're putting everywhere. It's this false reality you're imposing through through Hollywood and having diversity quotas in movies and everything like that. You're making everything racial and racist, and so yeah, there's systemic racism.
Yep. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better than that, folks. You really couldn't have. But they would have you convinced that the systemic racism really exists on the conservative end of things. And to that I say, what right or privilege do white men have that I don't have in this country? What opportunity do they have that I don't have in this country? And give me one example. And people, play devil's advocate in the chat right now. You give me one example of systemic racism in America against people of color. And then I will talk to you about that. But I just don't see it.
Me neither.
Me neither. Will doesn't see it either. Yet we are constantly jumping through hoops to make black people and make people of color in this country feel better. And while that's all great and dandy, we are doing it at the detriment of our country's values. We are doing it at the detriment of the civil rights movement. And we are doing it at the detriment of every single citizen in this country, which leads us into our next story. NFL 2021 season will include Black National Anthem, social justice messages again report. How do we feel about this? What's our initial reaction?
Who cares? Stupid NFL. Who cares?
Yeah. Well,
I care.
I love the NFL. I really do. Scott here also loves it. But yeah, it's that this one hurts for me. It's kind of like Will had his Chipotle when they started doing drag queen burritos, and for me, it's the NFL going woke is just painful to watch.
It is painful, and the Black National Anthem is made for one demographic of our community, and that is Black Americans. Our national anthem, the American national anthem, which I don't even agree with it being called the Black National Anthem. Throw that out of the water. We have an American national anthem, and that is it. And that does not alienate anybody. It is made for everybody in this country. It is made regardless of your race. It is made for you regardless of your faith. It is made for you regardless of your sexual orientation. It does not matter. If you are an American citizen, our national anthem is made for you. To then add on this Black National Anthem made for one demographic subset of our nation is completely ridiculous. It's a slap in the face to our actual true American national anthem. It's a slap in the face to everybody who fought and died for that to be our anthem.
Yeah, they want to destroy what this country was founded on. They want to destroy what this country was built on. It's no longer any hiding it. They're completely out in the open saying exactly what they want. They want to change all of the institutions that made America what it is.
And it's sad because when it's a pigeonhole too. When you admit, okay, yeah, sure, let's put the Black National Anthem. Why would you need that? Do we need that because America's systemically racist? Do we need that because black people are alienated by our actual national anthem? Do we need that because black people are still experiencing the remnants of slavery in our country? If you say that, if you say, yes, we do need the Black National Anthem, you're admitting to that. And that is what the left wants you to do. They want you to admit to the fact that America is racist so that they can start to take aim at our institutions, to target them, and to eventually either reform or completely abolish them. And that is their goal. It's always been their goal. They have no interest in actually taking the founding of our country and utilizing it in their practices and in their agenda. They want to completely eliminate it. And they do it in sneaky ways, like saying, you know what, let's play the Black National Anthem for all of our black NFL players, because who could possibly be against that? Who could possibly say, oh no, I don't believe that you should have your own national anthem? Well, that's what we're saying on this program. But there's a lot of people who would be way too scared to say that. And that is how they pigeonhole you and trick you into falling into their ideology.
The NFL is fine with spending $250 million on fighting racism, but when it comes to helping kids who are playing football not get concussions and have horrible brain injuries when they're older, they don't give a crap. They could care less. Mm-hmm. They care about what you think about them. They care about you thinking that they're so woke and that they actually want to help people. But when it comes to actually helping people with disabilities and stuff like that, the NFL doesn't care at all. They could care less if your son gets a concussion playing football and has horrible brain injuries later in his life. They don't care about that. What they care about is putting an image out there for you to see.
Right. It's all virtue, 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 virtue. And what happens is that actually causes tangible problems in our communities? Why is it that we are reverting back to the systemic racism and the Jim Crow of 1960, but selling it to people as if it is positive and if it's good? I saw a girl on TikTok the other day, and this video had millions and millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, several comments of support garnered by this video, saying that, you know what? When we talk about segregation in school, everybody says it's such a bad thing. And this is a black female, by the way, saying, you know what? I don't think black schools or black pools or black grocery stores or black restaurants sounds bad at all. I'd honestly think I would accept that. It seems like a safer space for me. What? And how do you hold those two ideological beliefs in the same breath, that America is systemically racist, but Jim Crow doesn't sound all that bad after all? Can anybody explain that to me? Can anybody explain that to me?
It's the literal opposite of progress, and yet it's what so many people are just passionately going out there advocating for and protesting. It's like, what are you even protesting?
Right.
There's no laws that are holding you back. It's all this, false perception. I think what saddens me about this case in particular, but it's really happening everywhere, is that the shared spaces are shrinking in our culture, where, like the classic, like you can sit next to someone at a sports game where you're both fans of the same team and they score, and all of a sudden you're hugging and jumping up and down because you share that thing in common. And now we're politicizing and racializing all of these, what were formerly shared spaces. And there's nowhere to go where you can like just connect with fellow Americans on an American level and on a human level, because everything's become infused with politics. And I think that's what's so pernicious about what these companies, woke companies and Hollywood are doing, is they think they're just virtue signaling. They think they're just going out there and being virtuous and saying, well, we're just doing the good thing. Isn't that good, everybody? But in reality, you're leaving half of the country behind that sees through this and says you're just disparaging America and trying to paint America in a bad light and make people want to tear the country down. And we don't believe in that. We believe in our founding ideals, and we're not going to play this game. And I think they need to feel the heat of it. We've seen NBA ratings have tanked, NFL ratings have tanked in the last few years, and I guess they just need to hurt badly enough to have it turn around. I don't know.
It's amazing, but what point is that? Because, like you said, their viewership
we
has
keep asking
tanked.
ourselves that.
What point?
It's insane how committed they are to being woke when you're watching your numbers go down, and yet still doubling down on the virtue signaling.
Is it a commitment to being woke, or is it a commitment to not wanting to admit that you're wrong? Which one is it?
I'm sure
because
it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
they're
just interchangeable.
It starts with the wokeness, and then you don't want it. What are you going to do? Go back after you've said America's racist? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's why when we get on this program, we try really hard not to be super angry and not to be malicious about the arguments that we make, even though it can be extremely frustrating to have to face these things every single day, because we truly want to understand what is the motivation here when we always can come back with facts, studies, evidence that disproves the argument, that disproves the policy changes, that disproves the solutions that they put forth. And yet they just blatantly ignore what we have to say, or don't even come to the table to hear it. And that seems to be a one-sided problem on this front. Although I will state there are many conservatives who will not talk to other leftists and don't want to hear what they have to say. But we are not those conservatives. We want to hear what you have to say, and we want to understand where you're coming from. But it's just so difficult sometimes.
It is very difficult.
It is. Now, we got a little bit of pushback on something that we said on the program yesterday, and I pulled a comment. It is a very long comment, so it's wordy. I'm going to try to read it, and maybe we'll break it down into segments and respond to it. But yesterday at the end of the show, we did a segment about the fact that several adults, a large portion of adults in America, no longer want to have children, no longer want to create families. And this is a pattern that has been exacerbated in recent decades, and a lot of people were not happy with the commentary that we gave, because they felt as though we were pressuring them and saying that episode until the last 6 minutes, because you all completely lost me on the children part, though. If I have my reasons, maybe I can't afford kids. Maybe I know I'd make a bad parent, don't want to get married. My career keeps me too busy. Having kids is not some duty that I owe to the world. And who are you to tell someone what they need in their life? Do you want to go ahead and respond to that one section of the comment?
I was troubleshooting, so why don't you respond to that?
Okay. Yeah. So a couple of, I would call them, I don't know, excuses, reasons for not having children is I can't afford kids. Maybe I'd make a bad parent, which are two things that are, you can change in your life. You can work to be able to afford kids. You can work to make yourself a better parent. If you are not leading a life that makes you want to be a role model, whether that's just a role model in society or a role model for your children, that's a problem. If you view yourself as somebody who would be a bad parent, that would be priority number one for me. How can I make myself a better person so that if I were to ever influence anybody, whether that's a friend, a peer, or my child, I would not be influencing them in a way that is bad or harmful. He says, maybe I don't want to get married or my career keeps me too busy. And I went back to the show and actually watched the segment where we talked about having children and why it is important and why it is not imperative, but something that people should strive for. And it was said that if you don't want to have children and you want to focus on your career and you want to focus on yourself, sure, that is absolutely fine. And that was said in the segment, but don't tell other people that what you're doing is more fulfilling than having children and having a family.
I feel like the only reason you write a comment like this is because you're insecure about how you really feel. I think that if you wanted to have children, you probably, I feel like this person probably wants to have children. Going to be honest. This person probably wants more money for children, but they come out here and say this because they feel a little insecure about their own life.
Right. Well, I mean, that could be the case. And who knows? But it's even if you don't want to have children, everybody said that was fine. Nobody was attacking you for not wanting them.
It's not you're not morally bad if you choose that way. I mean, there's a degree to which it's live your own life. It's a free country, free world. Like we're not saying that every single person who chooses not to have kids does so because of selfish reasons. So we don't like hedging all of our words because you always have to hedge everything. But just to be clear, that's not what we're saying. But what we are doing generally is lamenting the collapse of enthusiasm for family or the rise of this new ideology that is me focused and is not willing to make the short-term sacrifice of having children and knowing what that'll do, and that cannot see through and cannot value the long-term fulfillment that comes from having children.
And admit that it is, and it's a hard thing to admit, that not being married or not having kids, if you are too valuing of your personal alone time, that is a selfish cause. It is driven by a selfish nature, and that is completely fine if that is who you are as a person, but you can admit that is what is going on. Now, he ends his comment by saying, I feel the opposite, that there's a societal pressure. Like it's your duty to get married and start a family, and you're not a real man if you don't. To those people, I say, F you. And
this is why this guy's saying F you to us. Why do we even respond to this guy's comment?
Because this was a comment that in particular had quite a few likes, and many people echoed the sentiment in the comment section. So I just wanted, and he gave many points through the duration of this comment. But it's not really a big societal pressure, although on the conservative side it is, and it's rightfully so. The statistics show time and time again, the studies show that having a family and having kids is better for your happiness, it's better for society, it's better for values, and it's better for your country. And it's not even societal pressure that we are pushing on you. It is a biological incentive. You have a biological pressure to procreate, and it's okay to ignore that, like we've said time and time again. But
be a rebel, get married and start a family. Right. That's the new cool rebellious thing to do.
Yeah, it's not societal pressure. It is literally your biology for both men and women to procreate and have children. And if you don't agree with that or you don't want to do that, you can ignore your biology, but that is what's happening.
Yeah.
Now we have one final.
Will's still committed to his single life, so
he's still a bachelor.
Not really.
No. Okay, ladies. Will's looking.
It's a stupid comment. Like,
it is.
When you do this for long enough, you understand that so many people who agree with you aren't going to actually like so many of the things that you say. And it's that's just something that you have to deal with. Instead of making, it could come on here and make stuff that I think that every single person watching is going to like, or you make things that you truly believe in. So, I mean, this person, it's one person coming out and saying this. I saw there were other people saying this too, but statistically, obviously your life is better if you have children, you have a family. On average, your life is going to be better. maybe you're a rare case, okay? Everyone always likes to bring up a rare case of something with any sort of argument and use that, like when we talk about abortion and someone says, well, what about rape and incest? It's like you're using this rare case to try and justify abortions, right? And so it's like people use those kind of things to justify their weird arguments, which I don't really like. So
I just like responding to them because when you get pushback, I think it makes sense to
especially if that
confront it.
sentiment is echoed by a lot of people, which this one kind of was. I want to read real quick. I think this is Rach, just misspelled, but it said, I got married and had a child at 20, earned my BA, traveled around the world, and now we are purchasing our first home in California. You really can have it all. Winky face. So
Right.
There's an example of someone who got married, had a kid young, and is feeling fulfilled.
And we talked about this. A lot of people put up a barrier to having children with the pure excuse that their children might not have the upbringing that every other child gets. And I challenge you to find a person that had a hard childhood that says, I would rather be dead than ever being born. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who says that. It's the same thing for abortion. The same argument is that abortion should be legal because there are children who will lead inconvenient lives, or they will have lives that are harder than other children. And again, find me a foster kid or an adopted child who says that they would rather be dead. And you just can't. It's just not the case. Of course, if you're not in a position to parent and you know that you will be a bad parent, I would suggest that you prioritize that in your life, making yourself a better person, making yourself a better role model, not only for possible future children, but for your community. Because if you be a bad parent, I can nearly guarantee that you're a bad influence on anybody who is around you.
Yeah. Right. And I guess it's like, if you're someone who doesn't want to have kids, then maybe you don't have the values that are worth passing on to kids in the first place. I don't want to say that blanket statement again,
Right.
but like, and also like, if you're watching this stream, then more than likely you believe in the values that are worth passing on and are worth defending. And don't let the idea that, life might be hard for a short amount of time keep you from going for it. Because those values are worth passing on, and your kids will be better for it. We talked about this before the stream, but like kids that are raised with good values but in difficult circumstances turn out to be pretty good. Usually they turn better than those who are raised with a silver spoon and have everything taken for granted. So I don't like the argument that's like, well, it'll be hard to make ends meet if I have a kid. It's like, I don't know, my parents had nothing when I was young too. Like that's just how it is. But for a lot of people, but it's having a kid who learns the value of money and learns the value, and like if you're teaching those values, you're going to raise good, strong kids, and we need more people to do that. So anyway, I think we've harped on that long enough.
We do. We have. Last segment of the day I saw trending on Twitter this morning was #WednesdayMotivation. So I figured we'd end the program on a high note, something hopeful. And I think my Wednesday motivation is going to echo a sentiment that I shared on the stream yesterday, which is making friends and trying to influence people and being just a beacon of light for people who are in your life. So wake up every day and there are things that you can't control. And we as conservatives echo the sentiments of self-accountability and self-responsibility, and that your actions can truly shape how your life turns out and how successful you are. But there are things in this life that you cannot control. And my grandmother always told me as a child that there will be many things in this world that you can't control that happen to you on a day-to-day basis. What you can control is your reaction to them and your reaction to others. And if that's something within your control in a moment that you feel as though control is lost or control is lacking, then choose to be happy, choose to be somebody who's hopeful, choose to be somebody who's kind, choose to be somebody who's caring and compassionate. And that is my Wednesday motivation for the day. Do you guys have anything you'd like to share?
That was very good.
Thank you. I thank my grandmother, actually. Thanks, Grandma.
Oh yeah, she watches, right?
Yes, she does.
Okay, good.
She's one cool lady.
So you just said that so that she would watch.
Yeah, I said that so she would. Well, my grandmother is going to see that. That is whenever I think about my grandmother, I always think of great things. And that's one of the things, the highest thing that pops into my mind is that statement right there.
It's good. I think of good things with my grandmother too.
You guys have anything for Wednesday motivation?
Well,
you go.
I was not prepared for this, but as you're talking about your grandma, I had the displeasure of going to my grandfather's funeral. What was that, 2 weekends ago? And I had to speak, and I of course I lost it in giving my speech. But my grandpa was a awesome guy, just super. I gave 3 words. He was humble, gentle, and good. And he was a very unassuming person. He lived a quiet life. He built a house back in the 60s and raised his family, my mom and her sister in it. And they lived in that same house until a couple years ago, and they couldn't keep it up anymore. And they just had this quaint, quiet life. He worked the same job for 40 years or something, and had a good retirement, and was just like a good classic sort of American guy. And I just there's something to be said, though. Our culture these days does not value overwhelmingly just the living a good, quiet life, raising your family, taking responsibility, being a model citizen. The pastor complimented him for being he was always just there at church. And for 60 years, he went to the same little Lutheran church in rural Minnesota. And anyway, I just think there's definitely something to be said for living a good life. And when you meet the end, the way people talk about you is this was an honorable person. He was someone who contributed to community. He raised his family well. He didn't cause problems at the church. He was somebody who was faithful, who's someone who served. There's a lot to be said for that. And if I can carry that legacy on, then I'm motivated to do so, and I'd be living my life well. So
it's great.
That's good, Taylor.
Yeah.
Taylor didn't have to share that, but he did, and that's very important that he did. So thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, guys.
Anything from you, Will, for Wednesday motivation?
My motivation for everyone is to be a warrior, no matter what you're doing. If you're a fry cook at McDonald's, make that job your female dog, and do it to the best of your abilities at all times, and dominate the things in your life that you want to be better. Do not wait around for someone else to fix the things in your life that you see going wrong. Do not wait for things to just get better miraculously, because that's the way the world should work, and the world is unfair. You make your life better. You should be dominating your life at all points of it, making it so that when something goes wrong, you are fully prepared to handle that situation and to take risks and to make yourself a better man. That is what life is about, is going through hard situations and being prepared for them by making your life better, not blaming the world or other people for your problems. Make your life better. Be the best person that you can be.
Boom. A hopeful
Be an
message.
Ubermensch.
Be an Ubermensch. That's
Sort
right.
yourself out.
That's exactly right.
Clean your room.
A hopeful message to close out Wednesday's stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this stream, please like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell to get notified, hopefully, when we go live every day. What? Oh, yes. And if you guys saw me during
Will's
the stream.
very subtle reminder here.
He's just,
Reaching into your
pointing.
camera shot.
I was
didn't
like,
do
why
it.
is he pointing? If you saw me during the stream, I was drinking from this gorgeous little cup here. This is from Prager United. You can buy it at our shop on our website at prageru.com. It's a drink from this cool little
United.
thing.
Will, explain what Prager United is.
Prager United is a program with PragerU that you are donating $35 a month to PragerU so that you can help support us, keep our videos free, and that we are able to continue to do the work that we do every single day. Have this stream, all the other videos that we have, PragerU Kids, our Prager Force program with students. All of those things are made possible by donors. And so Prager United is you committing to give $35 every single month so that you can really help us out.
And every quarter, if you're a Prager United supporter, you get a little gift box with merch in it, and it includes stuff like this beautiful tumbler. We had a set of coasters. This is Dennis Prager on a coaster. We got Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, Abraham Lincoln. We've also got this Bluetooth speaker with a Prager that's PragerU branded. So get your loot box, become a PragerU United member today.
And if you choose, you can opt out of the gifts too, if you want to, because in case you want all of the money to go to PragerU, you are able to opt out of the gifts if you don't want them as well.
Perfect. And that's how we're going to close out our show. If you guys would like to be personally notified the next time we go live, text live to 41776. And if you are a lonely conservative who can't find friends in their area, join Prager Force. And that is if you are a high school, college student, or young professional under the age of 35. Go to pragerforce.com for a chance to meet other like-minded people, possibly be on our stream, because we interview Prager Force members all the time for Will and Amala Live, and work on content and projects with Prager University. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good Wednesday.